So a guy in Canada that really stood out to me, and obviously this one goes without saying because he was a top 3 player on the team, but one that we didn't talk about before the tournament nearly enough, and a guy that really stood out to me is Logan Stankoven. I have to say Stankoven because that's how I read his name every time I see it, because that's a funny name, and all the guys call him Stank. It's great. Yeah. But like I said, it's no shock here. He's the CHL Player of the Year. Like, we have to expect he was going to be good going into this tournament. But every time he was on the ice, he was just an absolute handful to deal with. His line was like never hemmed into their zone like other lines were a couple times with Canada. And they're just creating opportunities left, right, and center. And really, I think a lot of them not being hemmed in and them always being on the offense was his faceoffs. The guy had, I didn't see the final number after the gold medal game, but it was around 70% in this tournament. And that is huge to get the puck back to these defensemen that on this team, they can just whip it around, and the breakouts are so easy for them. So getting possession in every zone and then having possession with this talented line was so important for Canada. And he just flies out there. Like, he is so fast and plays big to the point where I always forget that he's kind of undersized, and I'm just mesmerized in his work ethic. So I really loved watching him. He had 4 goals and 6 assists in the 7 games, and just dominated on the faceoff dot. So as a guy who played center always, I love to watch that.
Yeah, like the faceoffs to me, like that's normally something where, you come into the NHL and that's something that players take a while to work on. Like, they're not very good at faceoffs when they enter the league. Maybe Stankoven is going to be, leading the charge for new players coming into the league who have perfected faceoffs, because like that's unbelievable to be up around 70%. Not only against, lesser teams, but in the gold medal game as well. He had a really good night on the draw too. So that's just extremely impressive. And like, there was just so much to his game. Like, you mentioned how they were always in the offensive zone. That was key because they never had to play defense. And so many guys on Team Canada and like the better teams in the tournament, they don't really know how to play defense because they don't ever have to, because they're so good. They always have the puck and they always want to. But we saw, kind of early on in the tournament, the McTavish and Bedard line, that was supposed to be the big scoring line. But what happened is they kind of got hemmed in their own zone time after time, and they couldn't really generate anything offensively because they didn't have the puck. And then it was just such a breath of fresh air to see the Stankoven line come out and not only have the puck and be able to, do their assignments defensively if need be, but to also generate offense as well. So Stankoven is a great pick. He did really stand out.
Yeah, and there's something to be said about, they kind of caught the eye of the defensive units of the other team, and that kind of like drew the attention away from the McTavish line and allowed McTavish to lead this tournament in points, because you had to still worry about this line instead. And Stankoven was, to me, the driver of this line. Although Kent Johnson caught a lot of the spotlight, I think Stankoven was just phenomenal in this tournament. And before we move on from him, with the center and the face-offs in this tournament, I don't know how to look at it. I don't know how to take it, because part of me says like, oh, well, he can win the face-off. He can do that well in the dot without using his feet or his hands or anything like that.
Yeah.
And then the other side of me is saying, well, he's winning all these face-offs against guys who can't use their feet and hands. So I don't know which way to take it, but to me, it's a positive, because if he's winning draws that cleanly with his stick, well, you throw the other tools in there and look out. And you have to think, if you're Dallas, you're licking your chops at the thought of this guy playing with maybe Robertson in the future or something like that. And like, you got to be happy with that.
Yeah, and on the face-off thing too, like, you can only do what you're allowed to do by the rules,
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't ever fault a guy. So the World Junior rule is that you can only use your stick in the draw. You can't use your body like you do in the NHL, or your skates rather. And you can't fault a guy for, playing by the rules and being good that way. But I see where you're coming from, type thing.
Yeah.
Let's just hope he doesn't get bullied when he does come to the league.
I just picture, like, like a Sidney Crosby or someone like that who has the strength, has the stick skill, but also is like gets so low on the draws and can pivot guys and uses his body position to move a guy out of the way and kick the puck. It's like, we'll see how that goes for him.
Yeah, first game he plays Sid's gonna clean him up for eight in a row or something.
Yeah. O'Reilly's like, yeah, let's see it. Buddy.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so Stankoven, that was a good pick. And there were so many guys on Team Canada. I figure I should mention this because we kind of did this last episode too, where we talked about the World Juniors, but like we didn't exclusively talk about the best players in the tournament. We didn't talk about McTavish much because what else can you say? He was going to be incredible. He was incredible. And we kind of got everything we expected from McTavish, including the save off the goal line in overtime. That was ridiculous.
I jumped off the couch for both that save and for the goal. Like, I was so excited and so invested in the game at that point. And after I saw him blow the tire behind the net, I was like, man, this is going to be a sad end to this tournament. And then he bats it out of the air. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. And dude, like, he turned it over twice that same shift. And as soon as so he turned it over, went the other way. They got possession. It went the other way. And then it was kind of a broken play. He stepped up and missed the guy, so that created the odd man rush in the first place. Then when he's back checking, got tripped. Topi Niemela off his stick, fluttering, bouncing on the line, and McTavish bats it out of the air and then clears it out of there. And I said this too as it happened, when we were talking about it. I was so impressed with Bedard, his patience and calmness to not also get his stick in the area where McTavish was, and to just kind of let McTavish do his job and not try to be the hero, kind of knowing when to jump in and when not to. Because how many times do you see that where, one guy might think he has it and then another guy or two comes in and then ends up putting it in because he's clumsy, Yeah. So I was impressed by that. But back to what I was saying, like, the point is, we're not talking about like the best players in the tournament because everything's already been said. Kent Johnson, overtime winner, gold medal, like all these players. So we're talking about guys who have stood out to us. And so here we go.